This is Cindy from Part-Time Permies,
And Michael.
and Mike's got allergies. So we just came off of the live show over at the Roads, and they are still wrapping up over there. I don't know if anyone from over there will eventually join us, but um, that was pretty interesting discussions and stuff there. So I need to adjust my windows a little bit so I can see what's going on. Sorry about that. It'll take me a second.
And they were talking about chickens mostly, and some garden beds, and a little bit on their cow, and supplements and problem solving, mostly with the chickens,
Yeah.
and plans for next year with gardens since they're still in their growing season, but
They're moved into starting
fall.
fall
They're in their fall winter.
winter gardens. So, but yeah, plans and such. So that was fun. Um, for those of you guys who get a chance at some point, it is nice to. Their premium membership is kind of cool because you do get this small chat on their live show. There's only like 13 people in there, and when they go live on a public show,
Like what, 600, 800?
thousands.
Yeah.
It goes into the thousands. It gets crazy. But I've tried moderating that for them, and that gets insane to try to keep up with. So let's see here. We have Kiri. Hello. Breeze here. Backyard Eden is in the room, and Tina is here. So got a decent group going here, and I think there's probably a few more as well. Yeah, 8 in the room total, it looks like, and that might include us. But yeah, Carrie's got fall seed sprouting. I am so far behind on fall planting, but I could get some quick greens started and get them in the ground. And
yeah, we need to get some stuff in.
that's
I've
got to be
been
this
just
week.
too busy on other projects
Yeah.
that I have to focus on, that I haven't been doing much. I get to walk in the garden about once a week and kind of look around.
I don't think I've been there in the garden since like last week. It's horrible.
You took the 10-day garden challenge and then you gave up right after
Well, no, I actually ended up spending like 5 to 8 hours in the garden moving compost from chicken run to
last
garden.
weekend. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're losing a reasonable amount of our harvest this year. Some for limited management, and some
just
from just not getting it out fast enough.
Not having the
We also
time.
have our fridge and our freezer are pretty full.
Yeah. We have one more freezer we could fill, but it's a small one.
Well, we got to do chickens soon, so
yeah. So we have to have
part of
room
it.
for them.
We've just got a lot of, I don't know, we got stuff in there and tomatoes and I
Yep.
don't know, boxes of stuff. It shouldn't be so full, but it is. And then I keep a bunch of ice packs in there for projects. So some of that just fills up in sort of dead space, but I need the ice packs. So.
Yeah, Bree says she's going to concentrate on garlic, maybe some kale. Too busy with other stuff. Yeah.
Well, those are good because not only the kale, you might get some late season. It will pop right up.
Yeah.
First thing in the spring, and of course the garlic will take off right away. In the spring, so they're going to be highly fruitful early, and it's almost impossible to kill them.
I'd also go ahead and put carrot seeds out. I've had carrots start first, soon as, even if they start in the fall and then they hold frost all winter and then continue the growth in the spring, they will be so sweet, and you'll be able to harvest them earlier.
Yeah, the baby carrots won't. They'll be medium-sized carrots, or you can let them go. So you get a first harvest.
Yeah, so
you'll carrots are well worth it. You can do that with parsnips too. They're really slow growing.
Yeah.
A lot of the root vegetables, turnips, you may kill them, or if you decide to just hoop them with, we like the ECM 4-foot tunnels, but you can do the 2-foot tunnels. So electrical conduit and rolled plastic, the 10-foot wide sheeting.
Just clip it on.
And that's pretty inexpensive and easy. And so you can start a bed and decide partway through that you want to keep it going.
Yeah.
In through the late fall, into the winter or all year. And you just throw those in the ground before the ground freezes, and and so that's a really good way to keep those roots sort of existing and growing, and then you hit the first little bit of warmth, and sometimes you get a pop in February or March, and things start
growing again.
off.
Yeah. Or even in January. I think when I just started
they'll get a little growth. Yeah.
No, when I just started filming, we had 70-degree days in January, and then we got a bunch of snow again.
Yeah.
So that's Michigan.
But the nice thing for the roots, you gotta vent them when it gets that hot.
Yeah, you do.
But they get a little start, and so they get a little growth, and their roots are well established. They take off a little bit, which means when they finally get the real spring growth in March, April, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So only greens available to you locally is iceberg. Oh,
That's pretty bad.
oh no. So I have to grow the rest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, iceberg is okay, but it's just so plain and
yeah.
it's crunchy and fresh and watery, which is nice, but it
But it
really
doesn't
has
have,
no flavor.
and it doesn't have as much nutrients in it either.
It's
So
pretty limited.
yeah,
Actually, romaine is extremely high
yeah,
in
yeah,
nutrients, and of course that's.
yeah.
But a lot of your head
Some of the
greens are,
heads are, yeah.
yeah.
So hello to Finite World. Hello to Mike's mom, and Green Gables. Welcome. We still have people coming in. So
That's an
yeah.
interesting question. I would talk to your realtor about that.
What's that?
They're talking about what are they going to do when they put their house on the market, and
Oh,
should they tear out their garden or play it up.
yeah, yeah.
We went for
We
a
did
year and
this.
a half trying to sell our house in New York.
Yeah,
We had a unique house in an old downtown. It was an old
Victorian.
historic Victorian that was in good condition, but not like immaculate show condition, but it was in very nice
Yeah,
shape. So it needed the right buyer.
yeah,
We had about a 400 square foot garden, and so the first season, well, we put on the market in like November, which is a weird time, but
yeah.
when,
That's when I got my job
yeah. So
in Michigan.
so I didn't worry about the first season. The next season, I planted um, I planted sparingly. I was pretty busy,
Yeah.
but I planted sparingly, partly for me and partly, I put in the classic salsa garden.
Mhm.
Some tomatoes, of course, some herbs, some
Peppers and
peppers. We had a couple other things, and I just put a few things in to fill the space. Um,
make
one because I thought I might use them, and we didn't know we were going to sell it.
yeah,
And then the next thing we do is I could hand it over. We had also had it posted that it had a nice fenced in. We had a vinyl fence for the
yeah,
dog that was tall and attractive, and we had a this garden that was portioned off, and we kept it all organic.
yeah.
So there was a little blurb, not a key point, saying perfect garden. So we wanted to have it ready. So it was actually
But I
sort
think
of
it
a,
said organic vegetable garden.
yeah, because
Yeah,
we never did put any chemicals on it,
yeah,
and nobody had a garden there for a long time before that.
yeah.
So what we did is figured either I'll use it, it might look nice because people like those things that
Mhm.
look homey, and otherwise it'll just kind of be a gift
Yeah.
to whoever comes. And it turned out we sold. Well, I didn't replant the next year because we sold in March. Um,
May.
in May. So yeah, we didn't really have much going in yet. It was too early.
Yeah.
So, but we thought it might would just be a gift, and then they'd be able to harvest late season a
Mhm.
few things. So I think it's not a bad idea, but our goal was as simple and easy, so it doesn't look like a mess. And we didn't go out of our way to buy anything expensive. It was just,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was 40 or $50
Just a few
max
seeds
of some
and
stuff to go in there.
things to make it look alive.
Spread the old seeds you have laying around,
Right.
and because you're likely not going to get the return on it. I mean, the alternative is you can put a nice ground cover or spread wildflower seeds, and just let some nice wildflowers kind of take it over, so it's low maintenance.
Yeah.
And then say, hey, this is what it is, and go back to vegetables or whatever they want. You never know what the new people want, anyways.
That's true.
They may just want green grass.
They may not even like tomatoes or
Yeah.
something, you know.
So,
Um,
but good
so
options to think about.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we need to do something in our beds. We still have a lot of things to harvest. We have a lot of peppers coming in, and it's getting cold enough at night. We should probably get out there and
Well,
grab.
we're not anywhere close to a frost
We're
yet.
not close to
We're fine.
frost.
We're fine.
We're in the upper 40s, so
And
we're
it just
okay.
started, so.
Yeah, literally 3 days ago it was like 87.
I did night market on Thursday night. I was setting up at 3 o'clock in the
It was
afternoon.
hot.
Blazing heat coming off the asphalt onto the shelters at the farmers market. I mean, we were drenched in sweat setting up, all of us, especially on the side that I'm on,
Yeah.
with the afternoon sun and the way it comes around. And even that evening, it finished out at 10 o'clock at night. So about 11, 10:30, 11, we were cleaned up.
And then by
And it
like
was still
a day,
75, almost 80 degrees out when we
yeah,
cleaned up.
I think our low that night was 70 and our low the next night was 47.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Big drop, but it's feeling like fall, in time for fall. So it
It
actually,
was a big full moon, I just noticed tonight.
yes, actually I think it's
Maybe it was
technically
last night.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost full. So, anyway, so we've had a lot going on this week. You had a lot with markets. We had an extra market that we were called. They had an opening. We did it.
Did 3 markets this week.
Yeah, for the pasta business.
I think I had an unprecedented amount of production between regular needs
and wholesale
markets and contracted projects. So
Yeah.
it was a lot.
And then I've been trying to work on the web page, which we finally got up and running on the West Michigan Pasta and Provisions webpage. It's
Our retail sales.
Yes.
Yeah, our
The
sales,
shop
our
is
shop
open.
is mostly complete. It's pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, all our main items are on there. We do have a couple things we could add to it, so that will be adjusting. But
the core items are there, and everything's up and running and linked to our payment system and stuff.
So the shop is open, and by the way, you guys, in celebration of our online ordering capabilities and in celebration of Homesteaders of America is in 2 weeks. I don't know if any of you guys will be there at all, but, and even if you're not, we are giving a discount to homesteaders on our West Michigan Pasta and Provisions webpage, which I'll link in here. And it's going to be 15% off your order on that page. And then if you are going to the Homesteaders of America conference, you click the option for picking it up at our drop-off place, which is usually the market. But if you click that option, there's no shipping, and we'll bring it to you at Homesteaders of America. So if you guys want to order any pasta that way, if you want to order pasta and have it shipped, we can do that too. So
we'll just confirm that we have everything on hand, which we think we do, and yeah, we'll package it up and put it in a vehicle and hope that we don't have too much. We don't have that much stuff coming with us to Homesteaders.
Yeah, so. And the link is in the description below as well. But I just put it in the chat, and the code for the promo code I'll put here in the chat as well. Making sure I have the right order of letters because I did a typo earlier. So if you'd like some pasta, you can always check it out. If not, that's fine too, but go ahead and if interested, that promo code will be good for 2 weeks. So until not next Sunday, but the Sunday after, which happens to be the Sunday before we go down to Homesteaders of America. That gives us enough time to make sure we have enough product to put in our car.
All of our orders or confirm or make a switch if something happens to get low.
But. Yeah. So anyway, so we have that going, which just launched today with the online sales. If there are any glitches, let me know. But I think I tested it out on the computer web anyway, and it looked like it worked. So we have that. Oh my gosh, we have a number of things. And I've been working on the wholesale end of that webpage as well all week.
So got a lot of projects going with wholesale and distribution that are taking a bunch of time to just get them set up and worked out.
Yeah. And we did get one video out, and technically two, but it was the same one twice. Only because we had one version, this version of making real ramen soup for the part-time Permies, but then I made another edited version for the pasta company, which I linked onto the company webpage for that recipe. So it is a recipe for ramen, how to make ramen at home. Of course, if you are in our local area, you could get fresh ramen from us. We can't ship the fresh ramen because there's not enough.
We could, but it would be a
expensive.
FedEx pack, insulated pack, kind of like when you get lobsters or ribs, and you're paying.
If you really want
you're paying $50 or $60 for the shipping, and I'm going to tell you it's not worth it. But if it's worth it, I'll do it. But I don't. Yeah. I personally, as good as most products are, rarely are they worth a overnight or a 2-day insulated ship. Yeah. So I would not recommend that for our pasta.
Green Gables Home said, "Thank you. I don't even know what all the effects are. I'm just using templated stuff." Oh, and I didn't, sorry, I didn't mute my computer, but I'm using templated wicks options on that webpage.
Actually, I'm
So
not sure what a parallax effect is.
no, neither. I don't either, unless that's the whole like the way it scrolls up the page. I don't know.
Yeah, so you'd have to
The
key
different
us in on
sections.
what that is.
Technical terms. If
Yeah.
you're technical, I'm not. I've just been playing with the Wix site. Just I started with my part-time Permies website, Wix site. Cannot talk. Um, and then
I needed
got
a
that basic,
site
and you needed a
heading
site.
into last February, March for an event, and we needed a landing page, just a place on the web, and we ended up with more than that, and we've kind of done a little more to it, but just held it constant, waiting to clear some of our other hurdles. But
Yeah.
we've been overdue for our wholesale links and our web store links, so we finally have that together, I think.
Yeah, and I still have more to do on that because we have a few more recipes, which we do like samples at the markets that we go to. So with little recipe cards that, give people ideas on what to do with the pasta. So we have a couple more of those that I need to actually upload onto the website because I've been trying to keep those on the website as well. So if you ever want pasta, what to cook with pasta ideas, you can always go on our website and just check out the recipes page as well. So,
okay, okay, we were wondering if that's
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's now the most interesting thing with a lot of the websites that they're component build your own. They've really gone beyond point and click, and they're well designed motifs, and then you just fill them in, making it with a little bit of work and attention and some common sense. You can end up with something that used to be very, very time consuming and somewhat difficult to do. You can get a very professional
looking
finish.
site.
I mean, Cindy's spent 3 or 4 days over the year doing, pretty heavy importing of stuff, but it's probably been maybe 4 days.
The build of the site.
For the build, and then it's
the build of the site itself, the initial like putting it all out there, it did probably take me not full days, but like it took because I work full time, but it took me probably a week to put the whole thing together. But that was in evenings and weekends.
But also you have to craft a lot of language, and some of the things, I have a lot of other things put together, but we were creating new formats because we've gotten in our logos, so we were doing a lot of it. We were building from the ground up what our brand image and needs
taking
were,
photos,
and verbiage. So
all the photos I took originally with the cell phone, but most of the recent ones were actually with my new camera that we got in May.
So how that relates to homesteading and permaculture is somewhat having a little more freedom to do what you want, although I'm just as busy.
It's a local business.
But it is a local business using high quality local food. But it's also amazing. 5 years ago, you couldn't build a website, do remote purchasing and credit card processing. And again, there's 2 or 3 or 4 key vendors in each of these categories. But the ability to do what I do on remote locations, do it on the amount of time and the money, the costs have gone way down, and to run a legitimate business online, you just couldn't do it 5 years ago.
Not without having
without a lot more money and a lot more paying people to manage each of those things.
Yeah, hiring someone to do the IT work.
Yeah, and somebody to do and again, even accounting software, and it all takes learning and all takes input and professionals to assist. But the ability to handle a large portion of it yourself. 5 and 10 years ago, I don't know how people could do it, and it's really brought the barriers and the costs to entry down quite a bit.
Talk about sustainability. You can make it your small business much more sustainable by all these tools. It was funny though because didn't your aunt ask you if your dad built the site? Your dad's into computer engineering.
Well, he's an engineer and does
computer
especially the information storage and security, and was originally a programmer, highly technical things. Actually, all that's already done on all of the things we use, and most of the integrations are pretty good between some of our services. So we're actually not doing that. We're really doing marketing and design work, and not having to do any of the technical.
Which is interesting because it actually, it all stemmed from my learning how to do half the stuff the social media started it, but then starting this webpage and the blog
A lot
that
of it,
goes
yeah,
with
came
it.
out of part-time Permies activity.
It's my learning how to use all this,
Because
teaching
I
myself.
don't do a lot with it. I'm
No.
busy doing other things, so
So, kind of
I
interesting.
access it, but I'm not actively managing.
New skills.
Yeah.
In addition to learning what to do outside, I'm learning how to use my computer. And oh, here's from Zero to Homestead. Hello.
Nice. From Georgia.
From Georgia. Yes.
Yeah, so think about whatever your small business or hobby business or your full-time or bringing your established activities or business from a very small locale or farm market and putting it out even regionally.
Yeah.
If not otherwise, it's kind of an interesting aspect of homesteading. Of there's this story that I heard that makes some sense for people came to the U.S. and started working, and many people got land, which was a new opportunity, and they grew for themselves. But sometimes things got hard, so you worked for other people, or till you could buy land, or you helped people out to get extra money, and that your job, and then maybe you worked in the winter, or you work part time, or maybe the second person in the family took on a part time job, but you always used your job as your way to grow your homestead, or to cover the gap in a bad year, or to buy the new equipment and things, the car, the washing machine.
It was the extra.
It was always the extra, and it got to a point where it became you come home from the farm, you come home from work to handle the farm in the beginning at night, day and night, and there are still a lot of people that do that. Most farmers maintain jobs, small farms, because they have to. And then it became the spouse, who wasn't full time, became part time. Then they became full time. Then everybody had 15 jobs, and because of one, our need for luxury and for other things, but there's just the need of economy as it's changed. You have to have a lot more working hours. It is interesting that we're giving some people are reversing that a little more using technology
and figuring out how to turn it around
by doing remote and doing access, being very niche, but accessing a large portion of the region, the country, or the world, and making them sustainable, so that there's part-time becomes a full-time, or they're reversing that relationship, which is sort of an interesting thing to think about, look at.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing this full-time as a job.
The business.
As making the pasta. So I don't have any, we don't have any particular end goal other than growing the business right now. Full-time, part-time, additional time, whatever. We're doing it the best we can to get it wherever it goes.
Yeah.
So.
And and then of course I work full time as well, but for somebody else. So you work for yourself, but that my working for someone else helps supplement your working for yourself. So
yeah, it means I have to, means I don't have to bring in money to put food on the table
right away,
and pay major expenses most of the time,
or worry about healthcare.
We happen to have a healthcare through Cindy, so some of those things makes it completely possible. Whereas it's really hard when you give up a primary income and you're spending, what we found out, we kind of knew, but we found out is you have to spend a lot of money. And I always say you got to spend a lot more money than you think, but even more money than you think, even when you think you're going to spend more money than you think, that there is
on your business.
There is always extra things. Like we kind of got things established, and I'm going through some expansion aspects, which means we're still having to build out on things, which means we make a little money, but I spend most of it trying to build out for the next step, which I think is pretty normal.
So Backyard Eden wants to be completely self-employed by the end of May. That's cool.
That's pretty fast. Now, the one thing we were told, so when I started, this is an interesting thing. Just as homesteading has homesteading groups and be better at it, there are incubator groups in our field for food and technology. We have a local food incubator group that we did some things with. Now, being a food professional really helped me.
And that's set up to make the connections
to help
education.
Yeah, to help jumpstart small businesses.
Yeah.
So we went through. So I already knew how to cook professionally. That was figuring out what it means, how to do it. Are you any good at professional stuff? I already knew how to do that. But we needed to make new connections. We needed to think about new things. So using those mentoring groups and community resource groups was helpful. But one of the first things they said, is, a lot of people are looking at part-time. I said, I'm really looking at full-time as soon as possible. And they said, well, it's hard to, I said, I'd like to make money in 6 months. I'd like to be, starting to pay myself a little in 6 months. They're like, oh, I don't know. Maybe. Good luck. And I do think that's true because I've met some of the people that have some small businesses going on. They're 2 and 3 years in. Like, have you made any money? And they're
Have
like,
you paid yourself
yeah,
yet?
and they're like, yeah, I made money. I made plenty of money, but they're like, I haven't really made any money because they built out because they had to do a bigger warehouse. They had to do this and that. And
Expansions, yeah.
so I would say the only thing I would say is be very careful on the expectation of when cash is coming. If you really, really need it bad to keep things going, um, because you put a lot of it back into
the business to keep it going.
And to grow it and to make it. And somebody else I was hearing says, anytime you're expanding a business, you're always going to be dumping cash in. You always need a cash reserve every time you decide to grow. Sometimes it's a bank. Small businesses, it's usually not banks. It's usually you or friends or family. So that was pretty interesting. We also do things. One other, just last note. So look for food. We had a food incubator, but look for local incubator sites for small business, either general or in your specific field, or homesteading, or how to markets, or work with people that are retiring.
To get mentors.
And just to get a head start and not make mistakes that could be very devastating that there's no reason making, because there's somebody right there to say, no, don't do that. It's not going to work. Or have you thought about looking at some other options? But we also I work with a group called SCORE, which is across the country for this. And I work with a small business development center in town. So they're both government overseen organizations that provide mentors for free. All their services are free unless like I go to a conference or something, and they're all protected by.
Does SCORE have a webpage?
Yeah, they do.
Score.com?
Yeah, and so they'll pair you with a mentor.
That's all it is?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's SCORE.
Should I double check it?
Yeah, I mean SCORE is. So they're a government entity, which means they will keep your information proprietary and secret, and they cannot take they cannot put you into business relationships or buy you out or do things.
Who's SCORE?
Yeah, SCORE is national. So free
SCORE
small business advice.
Yeah,
SCORE.org. And so they'll put you with mentors after mentors, whoever you need, or 2 or 3 mentors for all different types of things. And they're senior professional management. Many of them are retired or late in their career, basically. So they just do one-on-one mentoring and coaching as long as you want it, as long as you need it, and they keep changing it around. If you need a new mentor because you've changed your needs or you're exasperated with them, they'll change it up. And so that's something that I do. Cindy doesn't do anything with it, but I've been accessing them.
Yeah.
And again, they're no risk, basically no cost. I spend $85 a year going to a seminar once a year, an all-day seminar with them. And I have one of the top people in my field for a major food company who retired that I meet with for an hour and a half every 3 weeks for free. And I couldn't access or pay for him if I could find him.
We are lucky. We have a big food company right in the next.
We have a lot of food companies.
We have a lot.
Yeah, we do. It's a big food processing area.
But to get idea of how to, especially in production and getting packaging and getting things out there on store shelves, not just at farmers markets, and getting that input and how to do the marketing and how to do the distribution and all of that.
Our farmers market, interestingly, back to Eden, we have 2 significant professional bakers that are somewhat self-trained and somewhat professionally trained running storefronts. We have lots of other home style bakers. It's tough going. They struggle even at their level, and they're pretty good. They struggle, but they make a buck. I mean, they have staff. They have truck or 2. They
do deliveries.
They're selling to the local supermarkets, and the community has really supported both of them.
And restaurants.
Yep. T-shirts. We got a couple people at our market that sell T-shirts. Some are pretty good. What we do know about the farmers market is great for exposure and marketing, for reach, and for testing out things. It doesn't bring in enough money unless you're one of those very rare businesses that it really does much. It's pocket change.
It's more for marketing.
It's an awesome way to feel connected. It's an awesome way to talk to people and educate them about your product, hear what they want and need, and have them get buy-in. So later when they see you in a store or other places,
They
or call
recognize
you
it.
online, it also allows you to respond to what's going on and for stay very fresh with like me because it's food, local product. But it's not because of the investment of time showing up, gear, payment to be there. I mean, a massive amount of time, and you get bad weather and you reduce sales dramatically or seasonal sales issues. It's pretty. It's not highly lucrative, but I think it's really important. I don't see abandoning a market at any time.
No.
Even if we became very large, I think having a footprint in a couple of our local markets for that reason. The other thing we learned is markets are wonderful and markets are very bizarre animals. So don't trust markets. Just because your item works at a market is wonderful. It may or may not work in the broader spectrum of other arenas or stores. But even more so, just because it doesn't work great or go gangbusters at a market because the clientele and the mix of reasons why people come to markets is not your general population. Be careful, don't be discouraged. If you think you have the world's best thing and everybody needs it and you can't see why they don't, and you're not crazy, then don't trust the crazy people at the market alone. Go shop it out to other things.
Yeah.
And we find that different markets have different personalities.
Oh yeah.
It's demographics, it's incomes, but it's the management. They're very, they have personalities. So I highly recommend people, one, definitely go to your market as often as possible weekly because products are really inexpensive and good quality, and you get to know the people and how to use the food. But it's a great testing ground. It's just it's a weird operating ground. So.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it has, from the food side of things, it has connected you to local chefs and things like that too.
I meet chefs. I know a lot of the farmers. We buy what we don't grow. I think is a lot of us don't make a lot of money, but we have extra product and we trade a lot of product.
At the end of markets,
vendors in our markets are very friendly and we trade. We give away a lot of stuff to other vendors. They give us a lot of stuff. We should all be paying each other, but it's just informal barter. And a lot of times it's not worth much at the end of the market. Yet, oh, if I had to go pay the stuff I come home with some weeks.
Some of it's the baked goods. Some of the baked goods aren't going to be very good.
Yeah, they're
done.
And my fresh pasta is no good the next day. Well, I don't want to sell it. Yeah, I don't want to sell it because I don't have an outlet the next day or two.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so the fresh pasta on our end, it's good for 7 days, but you only have markets periodically.
Ripe fruit. I mean, right now I'm getting more peaches and stuff. People just throwing bags of peaches and peppers and stuff, and I'm like, I don't need it. I really don't need it. Greens. So.
Pat, how can I tell if my turtle likes? I have no clue. Lizards are little standoffish.
Are turtles lizards?
Well, not lizards. Reptiles. Are little standoffish.
We like turtles. Yeah.
I do like turtles. I like most animals. A lot of them that half the people get squeamish about, I'm fine with.
Yeah. So what else do you have on the
Green Gables? By the way,
list of things? Yeah.
Too inverted to do fairs and markets. They come to you. If you're really concentrating on the person who comes into your tent, you're not out there hawking your stuff. You're just setting up your tent. You concentrate on the people coming in.
I can tell you there are some of the weirdest personalities at markets, and some of them do very, very well. And I'm not saying being weird, but all different sorts of people, of all different crazy products, behaviors, styles.
Yeah. It depends on the market.
We are more. Some people, it's just simply a table with no linen, and they just sit there. Now, the one thing I can tell you is the people that sit on their phone, complaining about how bad the sales are
not going to make it.
That's the biggest killer is people on their phone. People watching movies because they're bored, and they're like, nobody comes and buys my stuff. There's one woman I could.
I can think of one person I was next to at a recent market as well.
But it's basically if you're friendly and you don't even have to promote it. In fact, our market does not like promoting.
No.
No hawking. We're probably one of the more aggressive in our design, our setup, and trying to monitor what we're doing because we have bigger aspirations.
And I may have a YouTube channel. but I am not an extrovert. And you hear a lot of YouTubers actually say that.
I
One
am
on a,
moderately
you are.
extroverted, but not extremely. I do it because that's part of my job.
You're pretty extroverted.
But I don't like to go out to. I don't like dealing with strangers
Yeah,
directly. You know, like the idea of cold call sales, and this is fairly close, but it's technical sales of a specialty item.
yeah,
Trying to understand what we're doing. So we will engage people with saying, "Would you like to try our
yeah,
pasta?" Or "We sell pasta," or "We have these things." That's probably more aggressive than 80 or 90% of what our market stalls do. You can't attack people
no,
or you can't scream at people that old style market
no, no,
stall.
no,
At most markets, you can't. But you
no.
actually, if you set up a thoughtful, attractive thing and use some graphic, a little bit of signage, people
People
will,
come to you.
the right people come and hang out. And when the right people figure out whatever you're doing, if it's fairly desirable, even if it's a very small niche, we have a guy that makes beer mugs and ceramic growlers that are beautiful, and they're not cheap. They're $40 to $75, but they're really, and I think they're great value. They're very
Mhm.
nice. He sells tons of them. So if you have the right niche thing and people start finding you, I think people show up. They come, don't really come late, but they leave early sometimes. They pull out on weeks when the weather's bad. They only come high season, low season, take all these vacations. If it's a hobby, that's fine. But the reality is, you have customers coming regularly that want to see you. So we make it a point to be there on time, to stay to the end unless it's a like thunderstorm, and we're there every week. We miss 2 weeks this year for Homesteaders of America coming up, and we think we actually may have coverage for both of our markets this
Yeah,
year. And oh, we had a trip to Montreal, which is a
yep.
business trip. So out of a 7 month run, we don't miss market because it's and that, so I think the people that do it seriously like that, you basically can
Develop a
be
clientele.
you, and while there are things to tweak it and make it
No, I mean
more
really,
helpful, yeah,
my thing at the market is don't necessarily initiate a conversation. I keep my eyes on the people passing by. I'll smile if I catch their eye. I say hi. I might say, "Have you tried our pastas before?" And that's it. And if they're interested, they come in and talk. If they're not, they walk on
yeah.
by. So
Well, and again, farmers markets, or even I find the flea markets and the specialty markets are harder to gauge because they're one
yeah,
timers, but those work for some people. And if you can drive people to your website, now if you there are people that don't like markets, John Shirk, who I went to visit for
yeah,
his
yeah.
specialty seeds, has a
Oh, just still
beautiful
have to.
website. And
I have a video on
John's
that.
like, I hate markets. So this is part. He goes, I hate markets. I do not like dealing
Yeah,
with people. It's a waste of time. I grew a lot of plants. I grew, early season. You can make a ton of money. It's
on
amazing.
seedlings.
People will sell, 30 and $40 for spring plants. Like you can't extract $40 out of anybody, and people are buying a whole list of plants. So there are. So he goes, well, I'd sell some plants early. I'd sell some seeds late. Maybe I'd do some tomatoes. He goes, I don't like to do that. So he started doing his seeds online because he says,
Mhm.
I don't want to be in that chase as a weekly produce
And he has some
seller,
awesome seeds.
and the load up and the tear down and the waste. So he built a business being a farmer he goes, I might do some early season stuff. Yeah, I'll show up. So he built a
Yeah,
business to not do farmers markets because he didn't
yeah.
want to.
He built this web page.
So then he drives web traffic,
Yeah,
which then means you got to run a whole lot of YouTube and Instagram and little quirky things, even if they're short, to
bring
find
people
the
in.
right people wherever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So we do have a our weekly Foraged Food Feature is not one this week that we've actually tried eating, although it's one we know very well. So for those of you guys who haven't been here before, I'm not sure if there's any newbies in here, but that's all right. Um, Down below in the description below here, I have a link to the Part-Time Permies webpage. And on that, we have a blog, a weekly blog that focuses on a foraged food every week that you can identify, how to identify that and such. So I'm actually going to pull it up to make sure I don't skip on my own notes. But um, but basically, the foraged food of this week is our oak trees because our oaks provide acorns, and acorns have historically been a staple basically a calorie crop for many, many thousands of years for many cultures
And of
around
course,
the
the
world.
large European ones through Italy and Spain
Yeah,
are regularly fed along with chestnuts and other
to pigs.
nuts to the pigs for the finest quality
Yeah,
cured, prosciuttos and sausages and cured meats because they just fatten up and they make
yeah.
them taste nutty, taste wonderful. So our acorns are a little bit different, so they're not quite as attractive as the
Well,
European ones, but
did you know there's over 80 different species of oak trees in North America? You could pretty much categorize them in one of two groups. There is a third group that I don't know here, but I'll focus
well,
on
it's
the two
true. When I
primary.
lived in Memphis and in Atlanta, the southern oaks
They're different.
they do not look anything like what we grew up
Yeah.
with here.
So the leaves
They're
can,
definitely oaks, but they
yeah,
don't look the same.
the leaves can be highly variable. They grow very large. This is one next to our house here that's
Got to be at
outside.
least 100 feet.
Yes, they can grow very large, and that one's probably not even the biggest one you can
Our
find.
neighbors across the street have some that are twice that size. Their
Yes,
trunk,
the
I
width
don't
of
know.
it. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's probably the diameter is 5 or 6 feet. It's along the road line, so these would have been farm, and it's a kind of a county road.
yeah.
So these could be that
Old
could be a
farm trees.
100-year-old plus,
Plus.
you know,
Yeah.
150-year-old, but and they're going strong.
And ours right next to our house are actually on the edge of what used to be an 80-acre farm, which we have the edge 5 acres of. So we have this line of big old oak trees along the edge of our property, which are nice, which would have been the border between two farms. So a nice wind block, actually, and that's one use that you can use them for is on the edge of farms to block wind and soil erosion and such. But oaks have been revered actually for a long time because it can be used for so many different things, for medicine, for wood, for other building materials. Quite a bit of
Tanning
difference.
of
Tanning,
hides and
absolutely. So,
curing of things. Yep.
yep. Um, I have it grow in a whole variety of areas too, mainly lower elevation. So if you get too high up a mountain, you'll stop seeing any deciduous trees and you'll move into pines. But lower elevations, you can see them all over the place. There's two broad categories of oaks. The white oak, which has this rounded, now there's a lot of different white oaks, but it has this rounded lobes on the leaves, and then you have red oaks, which have these pointy and even a little bit of bristles that go beyond the points of the oak leaf. And white oaks are found all over the world, but red oaks are only found in North America, which I did not know that, but that is also part of the reason why um, I think white oaks, a lot of Europeans say white oaks are much better for eating the acorns than red oaks as far as tannins go. But if you actually measure all the tannins from different species, you will see a whole lot of uh, ranges in tannin levels from species to species, even within the white oak group and the red oak group.
Yeah, so the question about acorn flour, we have thought about. Well,
Yeah.
you stored a bunch and soaked them and then forgot, and they molded something terrible last
Yeah,
year.
they do. I
So
didn't follow the
failed a
greatest.
port attempt on that
Yeah.
last year. So we
No,
have,
actually, I didn't. I
or
was
you
going
saved for
to.
the
I was
chickens.
going to save them for the chickens,
That's
but
what it
they're
was.
very perishable. And
Well, they were in a bucket and they didn't breathe, and
yeah,
so they molded.
yeah, I just didn't have time to
We
do that.
last year we had a moderate acorn harvest. They kind of go up and down, although we always get a good one. This year it looks like we're gonna have a bumper crop. Our
Of some of them,
walnut is
yeah.
going nuts
Or
also.
one walnut tree. That's a
Yeah,
different
we're getting crazy
matter.
walnuts.
So we're gonna have
So
to do something with those too. But no, actually, it's a different tree this year that's dropping. Last year we
yeah,
had a different tree, a red oak that was dropping like crazy on our roof. But we have like 9 oak trees next to our house that could drop acorns
they
on the
do
roof.
cycle like everything. You get leaf growth and you get fruiting, and the
Yeah,
water and the temperature affects it, and the
a lot of things.
fertilization.
And here's another difference between white and red oaks. White oaks fruit on the new growth. So they actually flower and fruit every year. Red oaks actually fruit on second year growth.
Huh.
So they flower one year and fruit the next. So you only get acorns from a red oak every other year. So that's also part of the reason why some years you get a ton, because you might be getting from white and red oaks, whereas other years you're only getting half as much because you're only getting from the white
we
oaks.
have a woodshed right under our oaks that it's got a
Metal roof.
it's got a aluminum roof on it.
Yeah.
You can hear those things bouncing off all the way on
Yep.
the other side of the house right now when
Yeah.
it's quiet. You hear this bang.
Oh, by the way, we have someone coming to visit us, and he is walking in the door right now. So Mike's mom, who's online,
Hello.
Mike's dad, just
Somebody new.
oh, we're online, by the way. Sorry, Puddin'.
I haven't heard her bark that much.
Yeah, I know. She's gonna run outside and go away.
She actually knows him.
She does know him. I think you surprised her.
Yeah, I did.
This might take a minute. Sorry, guys. Anyway, I hope
Acorns are falling on their outbuilding with a metal roof. Carrie's got the same thing.
Yep. And it was windy on Thursday when I decided to feature acorns. It was so windy that it sounded like it was raining on our roof here. So, Mike's dad's been in one of or two of our videos. I think just one. Not too long. Yeah, good job, Puddin'.
Yeah, that's right.
She definitely guarded the house, but she ran out the back door as she was barking. So
well, my mom's online, so she now knows that he
made it.
He made it. He drove up from South Carolina this morning.
Yep,
so.
we knew that timing was going to be close.
He said be here about 9:30, and I said, well, we'll be online. So.
Yep. Anyway, so sorry about the interruption there, but so anyway, either one, you can eat the acorns from either one. Now the problem is you got to get good acorns. You want to make sure they're ripe, and when they're ripe, they fall right out of their caps without hardly any force at all. They'll basically brush up against them, they'll fall out of the caps. If they fall before they leave their caps, they're probably falling because they're diseased and not ripe yet. So sometimes in the first windstorms of fall, you'll get some of the early falls, and those are usually not ripe or not good.
We started a week or two ago getting a few small ones. They're significantly bigger now, and they're starting to look a lot
more
closer to ripe. Yeah.
You do have to watch for different defects and holes and such. The holes that are in this picture on the two acorns are actually the holes that are from weevil grubs. After they've eaten out the meat and grown into the grub stage, they make a hole to burrow out. So those are pretty much hollowed out acorns at this point.
We have an issue with either the same or similar with chestnuts.
Yeah.
So in our area, we get lots of acorns. Most people don't do much with them, but some people do the acorn flour and such.
Yeah.
We get quite a few different types of American and also European planted chestnuts, walnuts. There's people doing some hazelnuts and some hickory nuts. So there's a pretty good list of nuts that could be available in our area as well as much of the country.
If you sit down somewhere, she might. I would just sit down somewhere.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, she'll relax. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So you do have to inspect the acorns. Make sure there's no defects. Little tiny holes is where the weevil inserts the eggs, so you got to watch for those. They're often in the little disc that's under the cap. So at the top of the acorn, you basically there's a whole chapter dedicated to how to process acorns, washing them, doing the float test. Now the float test only helps you identify those that are well into infestation, because that's when most of the acorn meat's eaten out. They'll float up, but you won't be able to tell if it's partially infected or early infections. Drying them. shelling them, um, and removing the skin and then grinding them. You have to hot leach them or cold leach them. Now, if you're hot leaching them is like putting them in boiled water to get all the tannins out. Is that a really big bird? Sorry, guys. Uh, that is a really big dog barking. It's a Great Dane barking, and she knows him, but she is a nervous girl. So she'll settle down, but sorry, the timing's not great on that. So um, she'll settle down after she gets used to having him in the room. But anyway, the leaching you do takes some time. You have to. It's like having a rooster go off in the background
It is.
of the video. Oh man, I make some videos sometimes, and the roosters keep going, or the geese squawk left and right, and I'm like, can't talk over them.
So I'm gonna bet if you look into historical cooking, the
Yeah.
Italians used a lot of they used a lot of nut flours and things. I'm gonna bet there's some pretty good information uses in some of the old Italian preparations.
Well, actually, one of the book that has all the chapters on. Oh, actually, I'm sorry.
Did you check the Michigan? That Michigan book, the walnut pickle and watermelon cake book for Acorns?
I did not look into that one.
Because that goes back 100 and some years.
Okay.
So we're talking about 100 to 200 years worth of selected recipes.
As far as a whole chapter and some recipes, this book, Nature's Garden, I have linked in the description below, by Samuel Thayer, has a whole chapter on how to process acorns, and I think it's great. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Puddin is Puddin's upsetting the bulldog.
We have bulldog. Oh,
Mike's parents have bulldogs.
Oh, upsetting Dainty.
Yeah, Dainty is making Dainty bark. Oh no, sorry.
You're making Dainty bark at home.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's Mike's mom watching us. So yeah, Puddin does guard, but it takes her a little while to relax. She's a nervous girl. She is getting better with us though. There is alkali processing too, by the way, you guys, using either cold or hot leaching, and then using lye or lime to extract the tannins and neutralize them.
I don't see anything under acorns. I'm looking at nuts. I guess this book was so sophisticated that they didn't want to.
They didn't want to.
No, and they only have nasturtium seeds.
Huh.
Nasturtium and seeds. No, nothing in there. I'm surprised. That should have had something in there.
Yeah.
A century of Michigan cooking.
Well, here's the thing. It was also
would have been maybe older than that.
It was also looked down upon for a while because originally it was so prominent to eat a lot of breads made out of and crackers and crusts and things. It doesn't rise, by the way, the acorn flour, unless you're mixing it.
It's gluten free.
It is gluten free.
Pretty much why.
Yeah, but it won't rise unless you have it with something like wheat
flour as a stretching.
Yeah, so you could do 50 up to 50 from what I've read. I haven't done it yet. It's something I'd like to in a way try, but it looks like
we don't have a grain mill. I've been thinking for a couple of years I'd like to at some point get one of those.
Even just a hand crank mill to try.
Yeah, there's some nice there, but they're $200 to $400. The really nice ones are like $400, but we found some other ones, and of course the challenge when you're grinding is, are you grinding for flour, are you grinding for seeds? And some of them you can change the sizing on them effectively, and some you can't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So actually, if anybody regularly uses a seed mill or a flour grinding mill, it'd be interesting to get your comments.
Yeah. And there is one, when I was reading about it for the acorns do have a lot of oils in them. So if you're getting a mill, you have to get one that's not using a stone, because the oils will clog the stone, is from what I've read. The metal, I don't know if they're cast iron or what they're made out of for the grinding part. The oils don't clog that up as much. So
you have to cold. Yeah, you have to keep it cold. Almost all the seeds. Yeah. Seed grind. Yes, Pat. Geese do have knees.
Yeah,
they do. Definitely have knees.
Backward knees.
Yeah,
they bend backwards.
Dogs.
Yes. Um, so yeah, as far as nutrition goes, acorns can range quite a bit in the amount of carbohydrates, which it has the most of. Oils, so carbohydrates 50 to 90%, oils like 5 to 30%.
Which is probably fairly low oil content compared to a lot of nuts, I'm
Depends.
guessing.
The reds seem to have a little higher oil amount than the whites. The whites have have higher carb amounts in general, but again, there's a high amount of variation between species.
I mean, if you even think about like oak barrels where the high value wood is used,
Yeah,
how much that varies because you have the European oak, which is much lower in tannin, even when you're talking about aging, syrups or wine or whiskey.
yeah.
And so,
It's the red oaks that they say have the highest tannins in them. However, that is another thing that's so variable that it depends. It really just depends on the species, more than white versus red. Um, but by the way, acorns also are very high in certain minerals and vitamin Bs, and especially in niacin and potassium, and have all the essential amino acids, although not a lot of tryptophan. So nutritionally, they do make, and they're good, decent amount of calories, which of course, in our overeating stage of society at this point, we're trying to cut calories, but in much of history you needed those calorie, and we still need the calorie crops. This was a big provider of calorie crops that easy to grow. I mean, you go out in the woods and pick up your acorns. um, Medicinal uses, the bark is astringent. um, it was used to treat diarrhea, dysentery, inflammations. It's also antimicrobial, so you can use for mouthwash for sore throat, tonsillitis. People will chew on the sticks and brush their teeth with twigs, as well. Uh, the leaves can be made into a tea to treat diarrhea as well. Compress for sore eyes, or dressing for open wounds and bites and stings. The other uses that we have for oaks, tannin is for tanning leather. So that's where that word is from. It goes together. So the tannins was a byproduct of washing the acorns, and oftentimes the mills and the places that would sell the acorn flour, the byproduct they would sell for tanning leather. So those kind of went hand in hand. And of course, you have animal food, like we're talking for pigs in South Europe. It was highly um, desirable to finish your pigs on acorns and chestnuts.
interesting to talk with about starting with the farmer, and I've done some curing. Is a lot of people try and put the acorns to their livestock here. I think they eat them some, but not a lot.
Yeah.
It does not affect the meat in that way and get it really rich and nutty and buttery and desirable.
I wonder if they just don't eat it as much because there's more tannins in the American
Yeah,
ones.
so the American finished on acorn, people have tried to do it. You don't get this $3,000 Spanish ham from it. So sorry.
It's probably the species of oak they have in
Yeah, and
Spain.
there are other nuts that can be used in apples and things. And well, and traditionally in a lot of parts of Europe, Italy, and I think Spain, they would run the pigs through the fields towards the end of the year. So think about your apples are pretty much
Yeah.
down and you've got what you want. You let them
Clean
run through the
everything up.
nuts and the apples or pears or whatever it is, and let them clean up that rotting, fermenting fruit, which they like,
Which also keeps
and
the
it has all
pests
the
down.
yeah. So and maybe a little fertilizer in there.
Yep.
So that's one of the best ways to finish is to figure out if you're doing hogs and you have some other form of large amount of agriculture
Pigs and orchards go well
is
together.
yeah, can you let them into an area for a limited period of time, and you do it usually shortly before the late fall
Yeah.
harvest, so you maximize the sweetness and the fat buildup while they're eating all these nuts and fruit, and that
Yeah.
lends to really nice curable meats.
So, and of course, you have your lumber and firewood from oaks, and you have, if you
And
coppice
oak barrels,
and oak barrels for wine or
$600 to $800 for
whiskey.
French oak barrel. It's
Yeah.
really, and then Croatian oak and Italian oak. Mostly American oak is used for wine. It's very
Yeah.
strong. You blend it, but it's preferred for whiskey barrels, which are then typically also secondarily used for rum barrels and
Yeah.
tequila and everything else, which prefers American oak.
So,
And it's
and
about half the price for a barrel.
And then, of course, poles and fence posts. So you chop the oak tree down, it'll sprout new growth and very straight growth, and you can use those for fence posts and poles and basket materials,
We don't have
charcoal,
any
firewood.
plans for pigs or larger. We're not really set up. We'd have to do a bunch of work on our, string fences. It would be a lot of upfront
That'd
planning
be
and
fun.
money and then extra time. We'd be
Yeah.
interested,
I'd
but
love to
no
do it,
time
but
soon. So
yeah, I mean, we
yeah, 3 to 5 pigs would be great.
legally we could only
Have
have two on our
two,
property.
which we could do 2 a year, which is a
Yep.
tremendous amount of product.
Yeah.
For us, that's more as much.
More than we
We
need.
really need about 1 a year.
Yeah.
So 2 would be great because then you could do some charcuterie, other things. But the investment is, we're way better off finding that great pig. We're in a extremely prolific hog growing area.
Yeah.
So most of it's commodity, IBP, Tyson stuff. But there are some really awesome things that we have in the area and heirloom items. So to purchase or trade for those and access somebody who really knows what they're doing would be economically way smarter.
Yeah. So as far as I'm gonna go back to the oak here one more thing, because the one more thing that we do use our oaks for is mulch and fertilizer. We use the fallen leaves
Yeah.
To basically put straight into our garden and leaf mulch it and break it down in our garden, and that is what's actually helped our soil the most, because our soil is sand, and we now have a few inches of nice organic material on top of that in our garden from putting all our oak leaves, maple leaves.
Oak and maple is the primary. The locust leaves seem to
Look,
disappear pretty fast. They're so
they're
small,
small,
but we get a lot of
and some
twigs.
black cherry and stuff.
Yeah, so that's our primary freebie source. Now we do take them out of a low light grassy area that could use its own fertilization. But since we have to move stuff around, that is our most accessible on property item. So we have a small utility trailer, medium sized utility trailer. We fill that up about 5 times with leaves from the front yard and pretty much put them all
In
on
the
the
garden.
garden.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of, and then the chickens get in there. So it's
Yeah.
actually super usable. So all the neighbors are burning leaves all over, and people are trying to get them picked up on the roadside. And in
No,
fact,
we'll just take them.
I was tempted to ask the neighbors who have tons of oaks across from us, and
Just to blow it across the street. We'll take
I was
it.
like, if you want to load them up and just dump them, but he
Yeah.
burns a lot. The other neighbor across from us, they have all the trees cut down, so they get almost no leaves. They basically don't clean up leaves.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But their property is way hotter, and you can tell differences in how it's managed in the heat.
Yeah.
And what they could grow. They don't really have much of a garden. So we're happy to have the trees, even though it takes, we're looking at 1 to 2 days of leaf clean, usually 2 days of leaf cleanup.
Yep.
In the last 2 years, the leaf blower always broke
halfway through,
right in the middle of when we really needed it. Now I get it fixed fairly quick, but not. It's usually a week or two.
High season, it's a little slower to get it fixed.
And then it freezes or something. So
yeah,
the last 2 years we've had to do some of the cleanup in the spring.
Yeah.
I just started the leaf blower today because I blew all the nuts off of the driveway, and it started right up. So far we're good.
Yeah, and actually at this point, now that we're starting to build the soil nicely in our garden, we'll still put some in our garden, but I'm thinking we start building beds in our food forest from some of the leaves and designing where our beds are going to be in front, because we want to turn our whole front into a food forest, and that'll be a very slow, gradual process, because we got to thin some trees, coppice some trees, plant some fruit trees, and build up all the beds that go with that, as far as some flower beds and other things.
I've been tempted to snag bags of leaves from the road. It would be really easy to go around with a truck. We don't have that bad of a need, but it would be really easy. I did drop my truck off twice downtown at a friend's house who has a bunch of trees on a city lot. And she's like, it was late. It was in the spring. And I said, I'll just leave the truck down there. I don't need it much.
Just fill it up.
I'll leave it there for a week.
Fill it up.
And you can fill it up, and I'll even bring you a wheelbarrow. And so I did about a full truckload, and then a little more came off of, So instead of having them pick up on the city pickup, I said we'd be happy to take it.
I don't think the city took everything of hers.
No, they
sounds like
didn't.
they didn't take all of it. So she's like, I don't know
And
what to
some
do with
cities are
them.
doing it, and some aren't, and some are, some
Only
bag
certain
it.
days and like twice or
Yeah,
something.
they
And
wait till the end. And,
yeah,
our town in New York used to do it, and then they didn't. But everybody would push them in the road, so that they were basically forced to do it. But they would wait until like end of November, so almost right before the first snow. So they do one cleanup because I think they
yeah,
grudgingly did it. Uh, Although it was really needed because it was this old town with smaller streets,
and big trees
and they badly, and what it does is and it was
clogs
hilly,
everything.
and it clogs the drains, which becomes an icing and flooding issue. So they
Yeah,
actually kind of have an obligation to get it out of the road.
yeah. So I it's actually after
And
10
it's 10.
o'clock
Yeah.
already, and we didn't do one of the things I wanted to go through. So I'll
What do
throw
you want to
this
do?
out there. It's the Ask the Chef.
Oh,
If you guys have any cooking questions,
we can quickly
we
attack them,
can,
or we can
um,
follow up next week on them. Yeah.
yes. So if you have any offhand that you would like to ask us, feel free. I'm actually just checking on
I
Facebook and
think
make
it's
sure.
weird that cities see first they started doing it as a service and kind of being that perfect neighborhood
Yeah.
and everything cleaned up. And a lot of them have pulled back. I think a lot of them pulled back during, maybe recession and costs, their site costs. I think that community recycling you need to make it as easy and doable as possible, or people either don't do it or don't do the right things.
Hmm.
So by having the most, like in Europe and even in some towns, they have little compost bucket. And when we were in Montreal, they have little mini trash cans, and everybody has a compost bucket, and you're expected to put your compost. Um,
Tina has a question.
so yeah.
Tina posted a question. We have a Facebook page, you guys, and I do post, uh, put a post up that says "Ask the Chef," and we'll answer your questions on the live show. So sorry, Tina, I just noticed it was posted an hour ago. But starting a new job, looking for low carb meal for lunch and dinner for during the week. Hubby works out of town during the week, and she's only cooking for one.
Yeah, I tend, well, I cook all different styles.
My
Um,
low carb thing when we have the garden going when you weren't here was salads, but and
yeah, but
mixing.
salads aren't fully filling.
No,
So,
with
um,
protein in them.
I mean, the big trend right now, ongoing trend, and I think works pretty well, is plant-based meals that
Yeah,
are 80% or 90% plant-based, which means you're using a variety of vegetables. It may be moderate carb to low carb, depending on what it is. And so hashes and stir fries and things like that work well, but they tend to have a heavy carb component with
yeah,
them. But you can do what we call the restaurant the melanges, which can be whatever you got. So you got a half a cauliflower, a little this and a little that, and by spicing it up. So some of the easiest ways to work with that, I think, is curry.
yeah. That one's
Hot,
good.
sweet, spicy, not in broth, just tossed in powder or paste. Obviously, coconut milk adds a bunch of fat, but good fats and some carbs. So curries works well. Melanges of vegetables. One of the big things that I would do in restaurants where people are watching carbs is we would do high quality protein based salads. So we would grill smaller than usual pieces for restaurant portions of fish. So like 4 to 5 ounces, three, even though it's supposed to be like 3 ounces on a small portion, it looks too small. But you can, grilled fish, flank steak, filet mignon, ends, chicken, any type of protein that you find available, but you take about a half portion and you either quick pan saute it or grill it or even braise it or pull it, and then you add it over a salad. But a salad doesn't have to be greens. A salad can have green beans in it, cooked, fresh, pickled. Thinking about building salads with fruit, with some of those are carb driven, but um, building it with a whole bunch of different related items so that you have a vegetable based item. Obviously, watching the dressings because I'm less concerned about the carbs than you can dump 2 ounces of dressing
Sugar.
on, and that can be more than 50% of all the calories, almost all the sugar can show up in the dressing. And if you limit that,
Do oil and vinegar dressings.
yeah, lemon juices and whatever, and just a little bit less.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of taking a protein based item, and in restaurants for fancy stuff we do lobster tail or and duck and all kinds of stuff. But now you're doing a half portion. You're putting it on a vegetable base, and it's very effective because you're taking out the rice, potato, key item. Although as much as we do a lot of that, that's sort of modern cooking. I've still always built meals around the 3 or 4 part component of protein, starch, sometimes veg, and sauce. You don't have to
Double
design
veg.
it. Yeah, I like. Well, no, I like double or triple veg options. One, it spreads out your cost. It spreads out your portioning. Makes it more
Like
fun.
dinner last night, we had, well, it was the same veg. We had the brats. We had
Oh yeah, we had cabbage twice, which was just because I had them.
twice. We had a red cabbage, and then we had sauerkraut, and then we did have a potato salad with that, hot potato salad. So German Oktoberfest meal basically last night, and we posted that picture on Instagram if you're interested. But I think it was in our collage earlier.
Yeah. So I think So you
Slideshow.
can do. So I'm still a big fan of providing a carb component.
You can make it
More,
small.
but you can make it smaller, and that's so with things like pasta, use half or a third of the pasta and use a lot more added vegetables and then meat if you're putting it in, or sauce, and balance it out. Um, our bodies run on a lot of carbs. I know everybody has their own diets and needs, but um, there are kind of good ways to balance it.
Yeah.
So I do try and get some in, or getting them in like sweet potatoes or starchy vegetables versus grain
Pumpkins
starches.
Squashes.
Using carrots, and things like that. So I think that
How does Jerusalem artichoke play?
it is a starch vegetable, but it's more. It's much lower than even your pumpkins and
the acorns. By the way, a lot of the carbs, they're more starchy. They're a lot more starchy.
So I think that's a good way, and it's a way to use leftovers. Another trick that I was talking about is go to your grocery store, not the old school grocery stores, but most of your moderate to, and then your fancy grocery stores get crazy. Use their hot bar and their cold bar, whether it's just simply a salad bar. Use that if you're on the run and you're one person. You can go in and get a little bit of carrot, a little cucumber, and a little this, and maybe some chickpeas or olives or who knows what. Yeah, it's going to be $8 a pound weighed out. But if you think about it, it's already cut and chopped. You can get exactly what you need, so there's no waste. So you're going to use it just for that one meal or the next portion for lunch. And so you cut out the time, you cut out the waste of buying a whole piece, a whole portion. It can actually be very effective as 1 or 2 people to drive your meals off of a grocery store salad bar. Now, if you have a Whole Foods or something, which we don't have and we don't shop at,
you're gonna have to do a curry video, though.
You could then you can get all kinds of crazy things. But even the most simple cold salad bar is a pretty good start. And if they have expanded things, but again, you got to watch the high fat and the orange chicken and whatever else.
Substitutions for miso if you can't find miso for the ramen soup. Uh-oh. He'll be right back, and I don't know the answer to that question. He's allergies. Oh boy. Yeah, fall allergies are up. I'm just making sure we don't have anything else that we missed here.
Yeah. Well, so 2 things on curry and miso. Curry, just buy the powder or the paste. I like the paste a lot of times, which were different parts of the world. Curry is not any one thing. Curry means
sauce.
Yeah, sauce or blend. And in fact, I heard something good. In a lot of parts of the world, you would go to the local medicine man or the herbalist, and they would create. Your family would have a curry, or your region. But they may create a medicinal curry for you. So frequently, it has a lot of turmeric in it.
Yes, a curry, and turmeric's good for you too. Really good.
Yeah. So, but you can say, well, I need some coriander, and we want some mustard seed, and we need some fenugreek, and whatever. So you could create a personal, semi-medicinal, holistic curry that you eat regularly to sustain good health. Now, but curry just means a blend. There are many, many different types of curry powders. The yellow curry powder that's sort of in the usual run-of-the-mill lunch, spice aisle is pretty disgusting in my opinion. In fact, I really dislike it. But it's a form. So your main components, and you can find on. I'm not a super expert on it, but
curry Indian, like that.
Yeah. So that's actually got a little pasta in it. It's about a little more than half vegetables, and it's got a light curry broth. That does have some coconut milk.
Yeah.
Um, and
He
so
made that this week.
that was a demo for a project
Yeah.
that we're working on. And that's a pumpkin pasta and a black pasta with activated charcoal in it.
Yeah.
That was for a client request. So, but curry typically is turmeric and coriander, cumin is frequently, sometimes some chili powder, a lot of times some mustard seed, um, fresh or dry. And there's also a couple components. You can have your dry components purchased, blended, and then you have your fresh components, ginger, garlic, onion, a variety of things. Usually at the end, cilantro or other things may go in. So you can learn to build curries, and so there's in North India, South India, and Pakistan. There's curries used in China, in Japan. There's curries used all through Southeast Asia, even in the Philippines. And then you go to the Caribbean. They're mostly Indian style, but they have their own style. And then you have primarily fresh ground, which would be Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, where they're actually pureeing mostly fresh product and some dry spices. And they may be adding coconut milk. Typically, they don't make them quite as sweet as we make them.
Yeah.
But they can add some palm sugar and other things, fish sauce, soy.
I like Thai curries.
And those are a blend together and can be very medicinal and fresh because of all the ginger, the galangal, the herbs, and the fresh purees. So I recommend getting a couple books and start playing through things that you like. Now,
do you have any books on curries?
I have a few. I have a really nice, I want to say it's a Thai or Malaysian book on curries.
We have a
specifically on curry. I've had it for years. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but it was really good.
I don't know if you have it right here.
I have an Indian cookbook that's very large. So it's very, very complex.
We have a Trinidad cookbook that has curries.
To get used, yeah, but the Caribbean ones pretty much work off of Jamaican style, yellow curry powder.
Well, the Trinidad stuff is a little more Guyanese.
Yeah, but they work off of curry. They all work off of pretty much a standard yellow curry powder. Yeah. So it's a very, very complex process. As an American cook, it's just sort of a beginner in it. I know how to make it taste good, but to be really authentic to a region is harder. But you don't have to, because I like, and if you do either buy or make curry paste or even the powders you leave in a mixed up, and a paste you can freeze into cubes or into portions, so you can pull out a little bit at a time if you do go to the trouble of making something with puree in it.
So. Yeah, I don't know if I don't see the book over here.
And as far as miso. So miso is fermented soy. Usually it has some rice and soy, or sometimes other grains are adding into it, and it uses a koji. So it's a double ferment, but koji is actually a fungus. It's a mushroom, and that's where you get some of the funky. And you need to.
Tina, thank you. So you're gonna break your low carb for your birthday. That's good.
Yeah, we've got a good amount of protein, but I wouldn't call it a low carb item. It's a healthy carb item, especially when used properly.
Smaller portions, and you're good.
Yeah, and it's a better quality than your average pasta, but it's not necessarily low carb.
Okay, we have 3 or 4 people saying we need a curry video.
Yeah, well, we can work on. I mean, again, it's going to be somewhat of an amateur take. It's a somewhat informed, but I wouldn't call it a.
It could be
and curry is such a wide.
It's so many types of curries.
Yeah, well, and curry kind of means curry it's basically it means blend, so it doesn't mean anything.
It's like the word salsa.
Yeah, so we could approach it from a few different angles. Some of the techniques of how do you blend a curry powder, how do you start a curry powder, how do you make a curry paste, how do you develop it, and how do you finish it, how do you season or balance it with some different styles that is probably more useful. But yeah, back to the miso, it's a fermentation product. I'm not thinking miso replaces meats and broths and a lot of things easily, but to replace it, the only thing I can think of is, I mean, you can use vegetable stock, you can use a few drops of soy or mirin. It's not going to replace it, but it'll give you background flavors. Vegetable powders or autolyzed yeast, dietary yeast, would provide some of those meaty background flavors. That would be your best bet. And if you can't get miso in your general area, but almost everybody has an international and Asian store something somewhere. You can mail order,
Yeah.
um, mail order, but I don't. It depends on how much you're going to use miso. It is very nice because you can add miso to water or vegetable stock, and it starts to become a meat replacer. It's got very low cal, and it's got a lot of flavor. Now it has salt in it. It's pretty salty, um, but it's a really good flavor building product and a real good way to build healthful, tasty items without a lot of add-ins or meat base type things, and you can replace. You could use bouillon cubes and things like that, but or other bases. But
Yeah.
I would say there is no real full-on replacing for that fermentation. It's actually the fermentation of miso and the boil out step is almost like making a wort for making beer. It's very similar. And soy sauce is actually the process of like making beer. It's a ferment, but the koji, that fungusy mushroom. So maybe some mushroom powder or chopped up mushroom in light
Yeah, I was
amounts
actually thinking maybe
could be a way to add in some background flavors.
some meatiness to
But
it.
for a soup stock, for ramen, which just means noodles and broth with good stuff, chicken stock, beef stock, using bases, using Campbell's chicken stock or beef stock probably isn't quite good enough, but using just a little chopped up vegetables, making a vegetable stock and straining it, a little soy, and you can do all different types of flavorful stocks and get a nice noodle, whether it be a ramen or a rice noodle in there.
Where do you find it? In the grocery
It
store?
is typically
International?
refrigerated. Um, you're going to find it in the Asian section or the international. Health food stores probably have some nicer ones that are refrigerated. Sometimes it comes in a little squishy plastic tube. Um,
Can
it
you?
can be in the veg. So we have a vegetable section at one of our local markets, which is not in town. It's the Pawpaw Market.
Okay.
They have about 4 or 5 different types of tofu and tempeh, and I want to say they may have miso in with.
That section.
So if you're looking, whatever section has all the meat alternatives,
Yeah.
I bet you they got it there because they're frequently used together. And so sometimes it's just like a toothpaste tube. Sometimes it's a little jar.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you get that
it
one
lasts a
type
long time.
online? The one we used
Oh,
in the
I'm sure you
video?
can. I don't. I know a little bit about this company. It is.
We had one specific one we used in our video,
Which is kind of a
which
special one that I just happened to
yeah,
get into.
which was the special one. He's in the
And I
next
like
room.
it.
But it's basically where he's pulling it out. Um,
This is South River. Um, they're out of Massachusetts, so it's actually an American. It's not really industrial. They're like an artisan small batch. South River certified organic. This is a sweet white miso, but they make quite a few. They do traditionally wood fired.
oh, they have an online
Yeah,
store.
it's unpasteurized. They're doing probably the coolest stuff that I know. And I heard about them a number of years ago. I had a friend who visited them when we were in New York, and he goes, "They got this crazy stuff." They are doing some of the craziest stuff seen in the U.S. And because of their wood fired, it's got this smokiness. And this is kind of a lighter one. It has a little ferment smell to it, and you only use a little bit, moderate amount. This one's chunky. Some are smoother, but this is chunky. And they have, um, they have like sweet miso and whatever else. But
This is sweet white miso.
yeah, so some are very sweet. They almost taste very sugary. Um, this miso has almost because of the ferment, almost tastes like apple cider, like a really dry European apple cider. It really shocked me in a good way. The other thing you might be able to do, there's always ways to work with. If you can't get in a store, is go bug your local Japanese restaurant, or if it's an Pan-Asian restaurant that even sometimes a Chinese restaurant has miso soup. They're going to have some run-of-the-mill comes off of a major food truck, nothing special, but and restaurants don't like to do it or they charge you more than they should, but say, hey, can I buy some miso from you? Can I buy a small amount, just put it in a container, give me a price that's acceptable. You're not going to use a lot of it anyways.
Yeah.
And be like, if it's once a year or something, can I get some miso from you? And they're gonna probably overcharge you, but maybe it's $3 or $4 or $5, and they're happy and you're happy, and they scoop it into a little cup. So that's a good way to get traditional specialty items.
Yeah.
As bug them at a slow period of time at the beginning and the end of the night.
Yeah, so
Call ahead, see if you can get some.
this type is certified organic sweet white miso.
I think this was like $12. This is not cheap for.
Traditionally wood fired and unpasteurized
And it's
miso.
a pound. I mean, that's a
That's
lot.
a lot
I
of
need to do
miso.
some more. But in the winter, when you want a hot miso soup with vegetables, low cal, flavorful, satisfying, it's pretty good.
Yep. So I think that is wrapping it up for tonight because it is.
Carrie, you're just out in the middle of nowhere. You got to get like an Amazon droid
Get some
shipment.
Well, I
Yeah,
give
I
you the
know.
webpage. See if that works. If you could get a delivery from them, then you have access to miso. So
Yeah, and again, it's not going to be cheap to send it out. But
yeah,
I'm going to say if you really like miso and not knowing much about this company other than their specialty, if you're really invested in wanting miso versus getting a cheap run of the mill, it's probably worth going out of your way to get something like this
a nice
because it's
one.
pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like some of the best miso I've ever had. So.
Yeah. So anyway, we should. Oh, we have a comment on that. There's one woman from Thailand in my county,
Okay.
the only Asian in the entire county, and she has a Thai restaurant. Her husband is a
We love
ranger.
Thai food.
I love Thai
We
food.
love the freshness and how they use work with the spices.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Now Thailand does a whole mishmash of different influences.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't think miso is a particularly commonly used item. So miso and the fermentation and the kojis, which is related to also making sake, that happens in the mountainous cold areas of Japan. So Thailand's the opposite. They're not making miso.
Yeah.
Even if somebody, so,
but
she might have access, or they may be driving to a larger Asian store in a major city and doing a once every couple week
she
pickup.
might be able to get some for you.
Because I have friends that had Asian restaurants that every week they went into Chinatown. Every 2 weeks and they got a whole station wagon full of all these things that they either couldn't get, or they were so cheap that they had to buy them, and they would drive them back from Manhattan every. So you might be able to, if you're friendly with her, to get her to
make friends,
get a small amount of something for you, and But Thai cuisine is amazing. I have Japanese cuisine can be very subtle and is also amazing, but I really like that Southeast Asian style. Also, it's vegetable driven, lots of big flavors, and well, I don't know. They're two favorite. Well, they cook with chicken, pork, and seafood primarily, fish and seafood. Of course, they use other things. So they work with a really great palette of ingredients.
Yeah. So we really need to wrap it up.
Really late.
It's been a long show. So, but if you guys have other questions or whatnot, you can always list them on our Facebook page. We will be back next week.
Canned vegetable broth. Yeah, one last thing on that. Putting a touch of mirin, which is sweetened rice wine vinegar. Or you can take rice wine vinegar and put a pinch of your favorite sweetening item in it, just a little bit. It can really enhance it. Canned vegetable broth is notoriously not very good. So if you have any opportunity, you can take your leftovers. You can even use your skins, which I'm not a big fan of, but you can. Your outer peels, as long as they're not super dirty or molding. But think about it. Half a carrot, half an onion, any of your leftover herb stems, almost anything that's not going to stain it really dark, a little bit of tomato, whatever you got, almost like the one step away from your compost. And you need about 1 pound of vegetable trim, primarily being onion, carrot, and celery, and then whatever else, and to about 1 gallon of water. Simmer it for 30 minutes. That's it. After 30, no more than 40 minutes, you start losing subtle flavors. And you have your own vegetable stock. Super inexpensive. Anybody who has a garden should be able to develop. It'll change with time what you put in a little bit. Don't ever put red cabbage in; it'll turn green. But things that are really cabbagey and leafy, limit it because it gets strong. Stay to your roots. Roots can get sweet, so your onions, your garlic. But make vegetable stock; it will blow you away how much better it is. Plus, when they're mostly using autolyzed yeast and flavors, even though it tastes like vegetable stock, I'm not sure if it's really any better than flavored water, like making it with Coke. I wonder sometimes. So making your own vegetable stock, you know exactly what's in it. In a
Mhm.
30-minute cook, refrigerate it or freeze it. It can just be lightly essenced. You add your salt to it later or fortify it. It's amazing. That is making vegetable stock, making chicken stock if you can, is the foundation of classical professional cooking. It changes the world when you make stock, and most restaurants don't make stock. They're very lazy about it. So, but fine dining, that's what defines fine dining for me, is you scratch cook the majority of what you make, and you make your own stocks, which then get turned into your own sauces. And that's fine dining.
Okay, so I'm answering Jan's, or responding to Jan, who was on the Justin Rhodes,
Oh, okay.
and he was the one who was recommending our winter video because she's nearby, neighboring state here. So anyway, talking about keeping chickens warm in the winter, when it gets really
They
cold.
pretty much keep themselves warm.
For the most part, they do.
Part, yeah.
You just gotta limit the moisture, and that's the biggest thing. If you spill any water in the coop in the winter, by the way, get that bedding out into the run or something, because you don't want extra moisture in there.
Especially when it's not hard frozen. It's like
It just moves.
that in between, or they're warming up the area and it's causing humidity.
And they respire so much that they give off their own moisture, which is why having some ventilation up high above them, a lot of ventilation, the more the better, up above them is great. A lot of people do the 3-sided coops, or maybe do a 3.5-sided coop and have opening in a section, but making sure that their roosts are out of the wind is important.
So some bedding's good. Walls to block
Deep litter.
wind block is really good, and then
Number one.
And then some decent top ventilation, and quite a bit of it's fine.
Yeah. The more ventilation, the better, as long as they're not in direct wind. I do the deep litter because that insulates from the ground up, so you don't get that cold seeping up from the ground as much. And
it keeps them off the ground, so you don't have a mud pit if you're prone to raininess and water seepage.
Yeah. And then and it keeps them drier, and then you can just basically keep, instead of cleaning it out every time it gets messy, you put another layer of pine shavings up, and you just build it up all winter. And then in the winter we take that material, or in the spring we take that material and move it into the run. We take the run material that was down there and move it into the garden, and we keep rotating it every year. But we only have our chickens in that coop in the winter only.
Yeah, ish.
So basically just in the winter. So what we will do, like if we had them in there all year, which is actually how it came with the house, I'd probably do that rotation of the bedding twice a year. But since we just have them in there in the winter, and then we have chicken tractors that we move around the yard that they go into in the summer, we're just cleaning it out now.
Seller? Some people traditionally they did deep litter with their large livestock when they were in the barns.
Yeah. I think it was Joe Seller.
Yeah, so they're actually adding in their heavy straw.
And keep building it up.
Built up.
It keeps breaking
not
down
scraped out.
Yeah.
And then it actually starts hot composting in the spring when it gets turned.
Yeah. So putting your grass clippings in there would work. It breaks down. You have nice compost. Putting your leaf litter in there would work. It'll break down. But I usually do that shift with the bedding. Some people use straw. I like pine shavings. I just feel like it's fluffier, and if it's fluffier, it doesn't like smash down as tight, I guess.
Yeah.
And if it's fluffier, it has more air pockets, and more air pockets means it will have more insulation.
Well, the other thing you got to watch about the grass clippings they are green material and not carbon. I mean, they're a different form of, they're fresh.
If you're mixing green and brown.
They have a lot of moisture and ability to mold.
Yeah.
So while you can put some in a general mix, they're probably
you can put them in the run.
Yeah, in the run. They're probably not an ideal to be put in.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
put the grass problems. Yeah, exactly. I'd put them in the run. I wouldn't put them in the coop. I would put all brown material in the coop, whether it is straw or whether it is wood shavings, pine or otherwise.
Whatever's cheap and abundant. Yeah. I think getting the air in there to create
Straw can have
so they
mites.
don't get impacting. I think that's good.
Yeah, I haven't used straw, so straw might have mites. Um, but I mean, especially yeah, if you're coming from fields,
So
sure.
the run is our coop is not 2 feet above the run, but it's almost a foot and a half above the
Yeah.
run. And 12 by 6 run. We're probably
And what we did,
10 by what do you think? We're like 10 by 20 run?
no, we're about 10. Well, yeah, the run might be 10 by 20. Our
Roughly
coop
10 by
is
18.
10 by 6, and it was about a foot and a half above the ground originally. And I didn't like that setup because it just got all the wind underneath the coop, and if you didn't have very deep litter in the coop,
Which is probably big, yeah, a bigger problem
it's
to
not so insulated.
insulate
It's cold.
the floor to keep their
Um,
feet from.
well, they're not sitting on the ground that
Yeah,
often. They go on the roofs, but even still, you get all that seepage cold air from underneath.
yeah.
Um,
I think that was probably the biggest improvement other than the ventilation, which was there.
yeah. So what we did was we just put slapped on boards on that bottom part that was otherwise lifted off the ground. We slapped on boards and took out the flooring of
Which
the
was
coop.
getting old.
Yeah, it was starting to soften and stuff anyway, but took out that old flooring and just filled it with deep litter so that when and through the winter I'll keep adding on layers as it looks dirty. Anytime it looks dirty, you prevent it from smelling. If
Yeah,
you
if it starts smelling, you're out of
you're too late.
balance. Yeah,
Yeah, too late. If it starts smelling, it's too late. You got to definitely add on more
especially if it
before it
gets
smells.
real, not just a little chickeny poo smell. If
Ammonia.
it starts getting really ammonia, you're gonna have to heavily toss it with a lot of carbon, or
Yeah.
probably just get it out and
Usually you can mix it into the carbon and toss a
yeah,
bunch on top.
yeah,
So in
put a
deep
heavy
litter, you
layer.
have a good, you put a couple inches on top, you're okay. But you don't want all that ammonia in the air either because that's hard on the
So your
lungs.
running coop is maybe we're probably 1.5 times the size of yours. We're not that
Okay.
much bigger. We're less than twice the size of what you have. So
Okay.
our method, our style would work probably perfectly with what you already have set up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um,
we don't use a heater. We do heated water bowls.
we do heated water bowls.
And if we do the light, if we put the lights in early enough, it definitely helps the egg production.
Yeah, if you want to do artificial lighting, you can. We didn't last year at all. I have like all I did was string up white little Christmas lights, indoor, outdoor Christmas lights, and put them on a timer. The thing that helps most with, I think, is actually being able to get home, go out and get all the extra eggs before going to bed. Because if you leave them in there all night, they will explode. They'll freeze and explode.
Yeah, and that only happens when it's really cold.
Yeah, but
Not
when
just
you're under
freeze. Yeah,
zero.
yeah, when you're really approaching zero and less.
Yeah, single digits and under zero, you'll get exploding eggs in the coop, which will teach the chickens to eat the eggs because they love the insides of the eggs, which means you'll have a real drop in production, not just the typical winter drop. But you get all the wind underneath.
No, she has the plexi panels to prevent it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that
similar
works.
to what we did.
So you could, I mean, do the plexi panels to prevent it. You can even do the plexi panels underneath and then just take out the floor, put it straight on the ground, and put deep litter in there.
Yeah, because we had, yeah, some people do the hardware cloth, but we just have the beams
I
and the.
I actually do have hard. I did put hardware
That's right,
cloth
you
on the
did,
ground.
just because that's to keep
I
the
didn't want anything.
raccoons and.
Yeah, I didn't want anything digging its way in. Although they could dig their way into the run, and they haven't yet. But I did put hardware cloth under the ground because, or under the deep litter on the ground, um, just to in case we had anything. Yeah, use no lights in the coop, just a floodlight. Maybe that's I had chickens. Um, Anyway, yeah, I gotta go too here, but Jan, I will definitely be coming out with a new kind of series of videos on my rotation of the
You have a
bedding.
build out. Are you tearing? Didn't you do a video on tearing out the
I
floor?
did. That was a
That's up.
part of
That's
the
up
winter.
already. That was a
Yeah,
while ago.
right around the time with the winter coop stuff. I'm not sure if it was in that same video or I did it in a previous video.
So thinking out
Yeah.
loud, Justin was talking about doing a collab. Maybe your best collab is because he's warm, and so we don't do anything that he would do. Why don't you do the collab on winterizing and preparing?
Well, I already did that video.
But you could build some of these things
Yeah.
together into
He was
something for
asking me
him.
to do a video for his member area.
Yeah, so why don't you combine stuff on
Yeah.
cold hardy
Cold hardy breeds and cold hardy.
Or cold hardy handling of coops,
Yeah.
because that's something he doesn't have experience or ability to showcase.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and there's a couple things I have an idea for on that, but yeah. Anyway, we do have to run. It's late. I have to work in the morning. We're approaching 11 now. I mean, it's 20 to 11. So we will be here next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our usual. So we will see you then. If you guys want pasta, check out the webpage and
Thumbs up or whatever you like to do. We
thumbs up on the
still
way
got
out.
at least 11 people here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty good, I guess.
So we have 15 thumbs up for 11.
Considering we're deep into overtime.
Yes, we are. We will see you guys next time. Have a good night.